All right, Mr. Garcia. Well, thank you for meeting me today on your conference period. Today, I'd like to focus on a few things that we're going to go over. First, before we get into things, I'd like to ask, how do you feel about this work week? Well, what are your thoughts on? We're Friday, most of the worst part of the week is over. How would you say your week has gone so far?
I think it's gone great. It's been very productive. The students are definitely gaining a lot. I was able to give my students feedback on their exams. I was able to get to all my exit tickets, so it's been going pretty well.
I agree. I think I've been in your class maybe just once or twice this week, and I feel the gains that you've had from day one to where we're at right now is something worth celebrating. You've made a lot of progress, and I don't think that's something that anybody should overlook. So I give you a lot of credit on that. Your birthday, I didn't find out until the end of the day that it was your birthday. Did you do anything exciting for your birthday in the evening? I asked that because I noticed your lesson plans have quite a bit of content in them, and I wonder whether or not you actually got to enjoy.
I bought myself an iPad.
That's
awesome. That was no. Mostly, I kind of worked. I'm gonna wait to celebrate till this weekend.
All right, great.
I'm not giving myself any work.
Yeah, sounds like a responsible professional. All right, so I'd like to use this time to go over an observation that we conducted on Wednesday the 11th. If you remember, it was at the end of the day. There was about 10 minutes to go, and when we walked in, part of our debriefing, we talked about how appreciative we were that you were 10 minutes to the bell. You still had this energy level as if you started off the day, and the kids were engaged. So that's something definitely I wanted to point out too, that I wasn't the first one to point it. There was other lead team members saw that, and I was like, yeah, that's true. That's amazing. So you're definitely on the right track. I hope you feel that. What I want to concentrate on is providing you with some action steps that we can help to improve your class. So this week I noticed that you had consistent reinforcement of academic vocabulary. You use multiple CFUs in your class, and like I said, you have a very strong energy level all the way to the end of the day. Can I ask you, how do you think this impacts your class?
As far as the energy, the kids reciprocate most of the time. There's some that, my first period class is pretty much, it's going to be dead to the world because it's a first period class. Mm-hmm. But the rest of them, they do. Teacher actions reflect student actions.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm energetic, I can expect them to be energetic, and they show it to me. They're more engaged.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with that. So we have a few different components that we're going to concentrate on. The first thing that we're going to concentrate is talking about seeing the success, which we've already kind of delved into. The next part I want to do is seeing the model. So the focus for today is scripting a basic I do. So on your notes, if you could do me a favor and put the focus, and it's scripting a basic I do. So if you need to see what that looks like, if you could just label that out as your notes. Okay, so the I do, that is going to be our what, okay? And for the how, we have a few key points that are going to help you be on track to do that. So the first one, can you read it out loud as you type it in?
Identify key points. Students can't type and read at the same time. So
Okay,
I'm just going to read it.
Yeah, if you want to do one first. Yeah.
Identify key points the students need to internalize to master the objective.
Mm. If you want to write that out first, I wonder if I could do that myself.
I'm not good at multitasking. Thomas. Plan how you will introduce the key points to the students. And script what you will say word for word. Revise your script to remove any extra words.
Okay, so there's 4 right there, and there's 2 more that I'd like you to. So this is another part of your action step. These remaining 3 right here are definitely the key ones that we're going to do the first part, and this right here is the application of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the what?
Mm-hmm. So we already covered the what, so I scratched that out, sorry. So this is still part of the how. So this is just the next step after removing any extra words. We want to make an anchor chart or project the most rigorous question aligned to the objective.
Identify key points. Oh, I skipped one. Make an anchor chart or project the most rigorous question aligned to the objective through .cam or PowerPoint slide.
I need this X out, please.
Script I do. Model a think aloud with key points visible to students.
All right. All right, got him?
Yeah.
Excellent. So let me go over these one more time. That way we can just ground ourselves in what it is we're focusing on. So the first thing we want to do is identify key points students need to internalize the objective. What I've done is written out the objective of the lesson that we're going to be modeling. So in a second we'll get to that. We want to plan how we're going to introduce the key points to the students. And a lot of that has to do with preparation of writing out the exemplar and seeing what that process looks like. Then afterwards, from there, you can script what you'll say word for word. And when we talk about economy of language, the less useful words that we use, the more confusing we can expect kids to be. So this right here will help us remove any of those extra words. That way we can be as concise as possible. All right. So in doing that, how do you think we can measure the impact of this? Let's say that you incorporate this into your class. How do you think we can measure whether or not this is actually going to be helpful?
Well, we have a mid-unit quiz on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do my best not to apply anything that we talk about today. That way we can start Tuesday,
Mm-hmm.
at which point I will apply everything that we go over today. So we will be able to see clearly what the difference is.
Okay, so you can imagine implementing this on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
We could have a pretty decent gauge on whether or not you find this as to be effective.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and do you think we would do that with exit tickets, with independent practice? How do you think is an easy way for us to gauge that?
I think the exit tickets will be the fastest way,
Okay.
and therefore the most efficient because those are daily. The students get exit tickets every day.
Okay, so we'll use the exit ticket information to gauge the impact of the data. Could you make a note of that as well? So I'm writing in my notes, exit ticket will gauge impact. Great. All right, so what is the purpose of this? Right now, based off of this observation, we walked in, and what we want to do is work towards the exceptional rating on the GET 3D Strand 2. So we have the GET right here in front of us. Would you be able to find Strand 3D and then find Strand 2?
Guidepost 3, correct?
Guidepost 3D. So I think it's maybe 3 more pages.
3A.
Excellent. So 3D, and we're looking at strand 2. So could you read me the exceptional rating on strand 2, please? Yeah, it should be this one here.
Okay, so the teacher has planned how students will discover and internalize key points during the lesson. The teacher has planned whole group and individual open-ended questions that will support student discovery and understanding of key points. All students will have a chance to respond to the questions and share answers.
And I really want to point out that this is already being done in your class. It's not like we're starting from scratch. Like, you have a very good foundation. And if I had to be honest with you, I would think that we're somewhere around the proficient rating, and we want to help get you closer to the exceptional rating. Okay? So the next part of this process is seeing the gap. What was the gap between the model of your class in terms of key points when we came in to observe for you?
The key points weren't, I didn't have them up. I didn't have the key points up. I didn't have a rigorous question that they would be able to, that I was able to challenge them with. We were walking through the steps of solving a question that they were struggling with.
I will say that the question did seem rigorous to me, because we were looking at the same problem that you broke up into 3 different ways, right? So I think that, you, like I said, you are already doing some of this. I think the key points is going to help us get to that next part of how much comprehension those kids have. So what is a way that we could show the key points? What are some ideas that you could think of that will definitely help those kids see them at all times?
I could put them, I could get rid of, not negative, but maybe shift my objective and my do now over to that board, and then have them right there in the front to where everybody sees them.
That seems like a good idea.
Section.
Yeah, so that would be a good area for them to reference. I think that wall would be good. The objective, I don't know if it would make sense, but it seems like you have a little bit of space there. But I'll obviously give you the autonomy to figure out how you'd like that to be seen. What do you think the purpose of this will be? So the impact of doing what we discussed in the model compared to what you are currently doing. What do you think that impact will be?
I think it's going to improve their scores.
All right, so you think that the scores will improve? So improve student scores. I definitely agree with that. What about for yourself? Do you think there's anything that can be said about preparation for your class, or how you think kids will comprehend it? Is there, what will be the impact that you think you'll be able to notice?
I think it's going to, well, the way we're laying it out, it's going to make planning more efficient for me.
Okay, so do you think this is a structure that might help keep you in a certain series of events?
Because I'll have a clear understanding of what needs to be done, what's the expectation, and how I can get there.
Excellent. Great. Okay. All right, so we've gone through the see it gap. Now we want to name it. So based off of what you've written on your notes, what do you think your action step is in terms of what and how?
My action step would be to post the key points, to plan for the how. In other words, to script what I'm going to say.
Can you tell me first what is the what before we go through the how?
As far as what?
As far as like maybe one of the first things what our focus is for the day?
Oh, the I do.
Okay, so what in terms of the I do would you say your action step is? Like, what's the verb that I'm looking for from the I do part? Even though do is definitely a verb. What is the other verb?
I'm sorry. It's
okay, and I think when you wrote it down, I think the start of it was a basic. So this is the action step that I'm looking for you to say.
Script, yeah.
Script, excellent.
Yeah.
So
script, what I will say word for word.
Okay, so the script is the what. Can you run me through the how points?
I'm going to make an anchor chart. I'm going to I'll probably make an anchor chart. Most likely on that board, because Oh, sorry. I can do it on this one because I'm going to be shifting over. We already talked about that. We're going to be shifting over my objective, and I can put it right here next to Mr. Slopey Face.
Yeah, I saw that on your plans and was kind of like, once I have enough time, I'm definitely going to look into that. So yeah, I think it can look a few different ways, and I think we can pretty much troubleshoot as we go, like where we think it's most effective to be posted in the class. But I think this is at least a good start to at least having it somewhere visible to kids. So can you go on? I think those are both important things that I'm writing out. So an anchor chart, or I know they use the document camera quite a bit, right? So anchor chart or the doc cam. Can you continue, please?
Let's script the I do.
All right. So scripting the I do.
And model a think aloud. So I'm going to show the students how I thought through the process of solving this question.
Absolutely. And before you get to the think aloud process, what are the ways you're going to be able to create that anchor chart? Like, what are the key points that we labeled out that will help you get to this part of making the anchor chart?
So for this one, I'm going to take a rigorous question. I'm going to break it down into what the student is expected to do.
So the skill?
The skill. And depending on what the question is, I'm going to make a series of steps that the students would have to go through, basically the steps that I have to go through to solve that problem from a student's perspective. So from somebody that's never seen this problem before, how could I solve it?
Excellent, absolutely. That's exactly, I think, the process that's going to help students comprehend this a little bit more, and we'll be able to see that in action in just a little bit. All right, so we're able to name it. That is the focus that we made sure that we regrounded ourselves in. We need to script the I do. We're going to have an anchor chart or a document cam or something that shows them the key points of the what and the how they do that. Okay? So I believe this is getting to the point where I need to model for you. And of course, that should be my favorite part. So let's see. So we're going to plan before we practice. So what I would like to do at this time, I want both of us to be able to practice on this. So I'm going to put about 5 minutes, and I'd like you to go through this process before we get to the modeling aspect. This is definitely modeling, but we're both pretty much going to spar our ideas and figure out if there is something from my key points that should be on your key points and vice versa. So do you have a sheet of paper or something that we can work through each one of these problems?
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna put 5 minutes on the timer. Would you be able to project this, and maybe we'll put it on freeze, that way it won't go into sleep mode?
Oh.
Okay, so before we're gonna sit down and we'll work on this silently, what we're going to do is first make an exemplar of this with this in mind. So we're gonna identify the key points that students need to internalize, plan on how we're gonna introduce that, we'll script it, and then we'll revise the script to take out any extra words. And I can give you an example of my thought process. I have the worst handwriting in the world, sorry. But so from each single step, I was able to come up with key questions that I need to make sure I punch before I move on to the next step. So there's things in underlining keywords in the questions, figuring out how many lines that we need to evaluate, how many equations we need to make. Those are the types of things that we want to think about for kids when we introduce this to them. So I'm going to put 5 minutes on the board. Do you need to look at this, I guess, in order to start solving it?
Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, I don't know if it would help to look at this one. Since I already have it worked out, you could reference that if you like. So 5 minutes, start 5 minutes. Yeah.
I'm sorry to bore Jaden.
Oh, we're recording the video right now. Sorry. Would you like a little more time?
I think we're good.
You think you're good? All right, so is there anything that you can see based off of the work that you need to do that is going to be a misconception kids are definitely going to struggle with?
Yes. Plugging in the wrong points would definitely be something that they're likely to do.
Mhm.
The question is asking perpendicular to this point. I can see them trying to plug in this point.
Mhm.
Uh,
Okay, so we should definitely be explicit in, once we're reading this question, telling them this right here is one line and this right here is another line. We don't necessarily know the slope just yet for either one, but we need to make sure that we know which line that we're looking for. So in your key points, that would be a good internalization for you to figure out how you're going to communicate that to students.
okay.
But I'd like to take this time to practice this lesson. I want to model it for you to see how it can be implemented inside your class. Then afterwards, with your notes, I'd like for you to practice it from there, and we can debrief afterwards. Okay? All right, so if you'd like to face this way. I'm sorry that you're the only student in this class, so I'm going to be calling on you quite a bit. And two, I hope you can think like this is a rehearsal, so there's obviously a lot of space for us to be able to figure out what kinks we should work out. But starting this process, I think, is definitely going to translate to helping out your kids.
Okay.
So, all right, I'm going to put this off to the side. All right, so you ready? All right. So, good morning, class. Today we're going to go over this right here. As you know, in our independent practice and our note taking, we should already have a good grasp of how to solve for perpendicular lines. What I'd like us to do is look at this question first, and let's underline any keywords that we see. So, Mr. Garcia, can you tell me of some keywords that we can identify in this question?
Perpendicular.
Perpendicular. So on your handout, what I'd like you to do, make sure that you are underlining perpendicular. That right there is easily a keyword that we need to make sure that we punch. What are they asking us to do?
To write an equation that represents a line going through point 2.2 or 2, 2 that is perpendicular to line going through -3, 9, and 4, 5.
Okay, so are they asking us for a certain point, or by looking at our answer choices, are they asking us to solve for an equation?
They're asking us to write a linear point slope or slope intercept equation.
Okay, so they would like us to write an equation that represents a line. So, looking at at this graph right here, by reading the question, how many lines do you think that we have to evaluate here?
We have 2 lines that we're going to be evaluating because through any point, when there's a line perpendicular to it, there's a line.
Okay, and that 2, 2, is that 2 a part of the same line, or is that 2, 2 its own line?
That's a different line.
Okay, how do you know that that 2, 2 is its own line?
Because the lines going through -3, 9, and 4, 5. So those 2 would have to be one line, and the 2, 2 would be the starting point for the other line. Or not
Okay.
the starting point, but one of the points that it's going to be going through.
Okay, and if we're thinking about keywords, what would I say is the relationship between the line A? Let's say that this is line A, and this right here is line B. What is the relationship that we need to understand in this question?
That they're perpendicular.
Excellent. Absolutely correct. So we need to know that they're perpendicular. I'm just, for illustration's sake, let's say that this is line A, and let's say that this is line B. Stay with me? Excellent. So, first thing I need to do, I need to figure out the slope of this. So off to the side, some of the whats, let me write this out, and let's do hows right here. So for the what is one skill that I know I'm gonna have to use in order to be able to get towards this equation?
Slope formula.
Slope formula. So right here, off to the side, I'd like you to write slope formula. Mr. Garcia, if I'm looking at anywhere in this classroom, is there anywhere in this general area right here that we can maybe see what the slope of a line is as far as an equation?
Yes, right here.
Excellent. So slope of a line, could you read out to me what the equation for slope of a line is? I'm sorry, it's right here.
It's going to be slope equals the m, which is the notation for slope, and that's going to be change in y over change in x. That's going to equal y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1.
That is perfect. And in case you have any issues, you know that you can reference it at all times right here throughout the day. Okay? So we need to know our slope formula. We also need to know how to calculate for the y-intercept. So off to the side for what? Y-intercept, please make sure you have this on your notes. We need to calculate our y-intercept. I can tell you the way we do that is pretty much by getting ordered pairs, plugging them in, and then solving for b. Alright, so once we get that, we will have the equation of our first line. Are we looking for the equation for line A, or are we looking for the equation for line B?
Well, we don't have a second point yet for line B, so we would be finding the slope for line A.
Okay, so all of this is able to help us write an equation for line A. But class, do we want line A or do we want line B?
We're looking for the perpendicular line, so it'd have to be line B.
Line B, excellent. So we need to get to line A before we can get to line B, right? And I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking, I have some points, I think I should be able to plug them into here, right? So I have both negative 3 over 9, 3, 9, and 4, 5. Let me label out my ordered pairs. I have 4, negative 5. And class, the other one?
And negative, or 4, negative 5.
So that is the first one I wrote?
Negative 3, 9.
Excellent. So negative 3, 9. I expect to see that on your handouts. Make sure that you have that written. Excellent. All right, so I need to be able to plug these values into this equation right here. And sometimes I get confused with myself, so what I like to do is put xy and xy. Can you please label that on your handout? So if we know that we have delta y over delta x, what are the two values I'll put on top? What are two values I'll put on bottom?
The two y's are going to be on top, and then two x's are going to be on the bottom.
Okay, so I can show that a few ways. I'll say that these two go on the bottom, these two go on the top, right? So let me plug that into this equation. I have m is equal to 9 minus negative 5, and I have negative 3 minus 4. Let me just put those in parentheses, that way we do not get confused. Mr. Garcia, could you walk me through what are my rules for subtracting? What do I need to remember to do once I subtract those two numbers?
Well, you have to keep into account, or take into account that these are, you're subtracting a negative from a positive. So you're going to end up adding them.
Excellent. So if I was actually saying that 9 minus negative 5 is the same as 9 plus 5, what do I get for my numerator?
It'll be 14.
14, that's excellent. So 14 is my numerator. What would my denominator be?
So again, we're subtracting the negative from positive, so it's going to be 7.
So negative 3 plus negative 4 would give me a 7?
It would be negative 7.
Excellent. Negative 7. And of course, we always need to simplify this. What would my slope equal to?
It would be 2 over negative 1.
Excellent. So we could say that m is equal to negative 2. Would you agree with that? Excellent. So I'm going to leave this bit of information. I need to remember that right there represents the slope. Is that the slope of line A or line B?
It's going to be line A.
Line A slope, all right? So I have my slope for line A. Can you remind me, what is slope-intercept form? What does that look like?
Y equals mx plus b.
All right, so I have y is equal to mx plus b. What can I do with this -2 right here?
You can plug it into the m.
Excellent. So drop this down. I have -2. Now I need to figure out what letter B is. Do I have any information on this graph that could help me figure that out?
You have the point for line B,
Mhm.
so you could plug in the values of x and y into the slope-intercept form and solve for b.
Excellent. Could I use 2, 2?
Yes, that is the line that would be line B.
But am I solving for line B right now?
No, you're solving
Okay.
for the slope.
Okay, so can I use 2, 2 at the moment to solve for the equation for line A?
No,
No, right? So what is a point that I could use?
you could use either, you could use -3, 9, or 4, 5.
All right. So we can use either of these ordered pairs, plug them into this, right?
Mhm.
All right, so I'm going to literally plug in ordered pairs. I'm going to plug them in and solve for B. All right, so let me use 4 and 5. What I like to do is usually I write the ordered pair on top. So I have 4 and I have -5. So that way I can keep myself organized. I know that -5 is my y. So let me drop this down one more time. -5 is equal to -2. What is my x value that I'll put in there?
That's going to be 4.
4, right? So in parentheses, let me put 4, and then plus b since I don't know that yet, right? What is 2 times -4? 4 times -2?
That would be -8.
-8, right? So I have -8 plus b is equal to -5. Last step, how can I get b by itself?
We are going to do inverse operations, so we're going to add 8
To both sides?
to both sides.
Excellent. So plus 8 here, plus 8 there. I have a -5 and a +8. What would my b equal to?
It would be 3,
Excellent.
+3.
So b is equal to 3. So we're getting closer now. I need to be able to write an equation off of line A. Do I have all the information I need to be able to do that?
Yes.
Excellent. So can you help us put this together in this format right here? If I'm writing the equation for line 1, and do you have all this information written down? Can I erase some of it? So line A, equation is y is equal to mx plus b. I need to figure out where each single one of these components goes. What can I say about the letter m? What?
That will be the slope.
Okay.
Now,
So in here I can put -2. My x always remains as an x, and now I have the letter b. What did we calculate for letter b?
it was 3.
3. So line A, we have this as our equation. Seems like a lot. We're halfway done. You still with me? I think you still are, because I'm looking at your handout. It looks perfect so far. All right, so we have line A, equation 1. Now we need to get to the next step, right? So we've done step 1 and step 2. Let's go on to step 3. Now this is where we're going to actually incorporate some things that we've learned in the past few days. Perpendicular line postulate. Is there anywhere in the room where we could look and see if we have any kind of illustration that represents how to solve for perpendicular lines?
No.
No?
It's okay.
Okay, so slopes of perpendicular lines. Can you tell me how we solve for perpendicular lines based off of that right there?
Yes, the perpendicular lines have a slope whose product is -1.
So the product is equal to -1, right? How many slopes would we need in order to be able to solve for that?
We only need 1.
We need 1 slope to solve for what? The other slope, right?
Yes.
So if we have 1 slope, which we do, we can plug that into the equation and solve for the second one, right?
Mhm.
So I need to think about this. How can I turn this into an equation when I know that it is equal to -1 and I already have one of my slopes? What could I do? Let me make a little bit of space here. And if you're struggling with this, let's break it down. What did you say my slope is for line 1?
-2.
-2. So let's say line A, m is equal to -2, right?
Mhm.
I know that the other slope, after we evaluate it, it is equal to what?
It's going to be the product is going to be -1.
-1, right? So I know that -2 times some number is equal to what?
1. -1.
-1, right? So I don't want to use x or y because I might get confused. What letter do you think would be good for us to put right there?
M.
I'm so glad you said letter M. Thank you so much. And what do we say it's equal to?
-1.
-1. So this equation right here is incorporating the perpendicular lines postulate. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Excellent. How can I solve for m at this point?
Well, you're going to do inverse operations once again. You're going to
Excellent.
divide. You can divide by -2 on both sides.
Excellent. Okay. So make sure this reflects on your handout. Now I canceled it to where I have m on this side. If I'm dividing a negative with a negative, what does that turn into?
Positive.
Positive. So what would we say is our slope for line B?
0.5.
0.5. We could show that as a fraction. We could show that as a decimal. Either way, we know our slope is 0.5, right?
Mhm.
Now, is this an equation that I can use to answer this question?
Not yet.
Not yet, right? Now, if I'm honest, I could already look at the questions and already get rid of some, but I need you to make sure you do the whole entire process because this is an easy question. Let's imagine if it gets more difficult, you need to know how to do the whole process, right? So we have the slope of line B. Let's say line B, m is equal to 0.5 or 1/2, right?
Mhm.
What can I do with this slope that we did in step 2 that can give me that?
We do substitute.
Substitute.
Mhm.
How did we substitute in the last step?
We were solving for B.
Mhm.
So we plugged in our slope and our value of x. and our
Excellent.
value of y.
So label this step out. We're going to plug in our ordered pairs and solve for B one more time. Okay? Can I use, last time I used this number, can I use this number?
Mhm.
For line A.
Oh, no.
No. What is the only point that I could use to be able to put into this?
It would be 2, 2.
2, 2. Excellent. So right above this, I always like to line up my y's right below where my y would actually get plugged in. So can you read it to me down here? What should this look like if I'm plugging in these values?
It'll be 2 equals our slope, which is going to be 0.5,
Okay, so 0.5. And what do I have in parentheses?
2
2? Excellent.
plus 3. Or plus
Well, plus b, right? So 0.5 times 2, if I had 1/2 of something and I multiplied it times 2, what would that turn into?
1.
1, right? So multiplying these, I get 1 plus b equals to 2. Last step, inverse operation on both sides. Class, what do I end up with?
You can end up with, well,
I'm sorry. Yeah, it doesn't look so good, but 1 plus b. So
Uh-huh.
I'm minus 1 on this side.
1.
Excellent. So B, I haven't said this. What does B represent? I know that students often forget about what B actually means. Can you tell me what it actually represents?
The point at which the line intersects the y-axis.
The y-axis, right? What is the name for that?
The y-intercept.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you remember that. Can't tell you how many kids don't. Excellent. So B is equal to 1. Now, I think we're done. We're pretty close to done. What is the last step I need in order for us to get to this point right here?
substitute for our slope
Okay.
or our intercept.
Our slope and our intercept should get us our answer, right?
Yes.
So let's tie this all together. Y is equal to, what is our slope?
Our slope is 0.5.
0.5. I'm leaving the x alone. And what am I putting plus?
1.
1. Is there an answer choice that matches the work that we've done?
Yes. C.
C, absolutely. So this right here is a model of how I would present this to students while I'm thinking this out loud. I want to give you a few moments to prepare how you'll script this, and then I want you to have a chance to practice this, okay?
Okay.
So how many minutes do you think about 7 minutes would be good for you to prepare? Do you think you might need about 10 minutes?
I think probably about 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay, so let me put 10 minutes on the board. Think about the teacher steps that I did. How did I check for understanding? All right, so let me just stop right here.